It's okay if we sit here long enough, I'll just fall asleep. So I've got enough antibiotics and like cold medicine on board that, it will not take me long.
Okay, I guess I'll start off then.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
So on the guide that you gave us for question number 7, um, it talks about like if a friend tells you they're training, it talks about like the 5 kilometer race. I
Huh?
know in the slides and in class we talked about like 40 minutes is like what it takes to like see a difference. But then you also mentioned if we're training for like a marathon or something long distance,
Hmm.
it's better to do like a more longer time so you can like adapt properly. So I don't know how
Sure.
like 5K plays into that.
Sure. Anybody ever run a 5K or walked a 5K? Done anything related to a 5K? So really, really fast 5K, right? 5K's what it's like 3.2 miles or something like that, Karen. So people can run 5,000 meters, you know, well under 15 minutes to be really, really when you're really fast. Probably most of us, if we could go like right now today, if we could go run under a half an hour, that wouldn't be terrible. And so if you got to think about it in that way, right? Like, so you're going to go and you're going to do something that's going to last, maybe half an hour or something like that. And so, or even a little bit less. So that makes things a little different than if you're going to do something where you're going to have to run for 2 hours or 3 hours or something. And so I think that's sort of the point of all of that is that, in that particular instance, from a specificity standpoint, right? Do you need to go run on the weekend and run 10 miles or 15 miles or bike or do something like that? Probably not, right? Because all you're trying to do is to go that particular distance. And so that thing, that deal kind of cuts both ways. So if you're going to go a long distance, even though you don't get a further increase in VO2 max by going past 40 minutes, you probably need to run some distance or cover some distance. But if all you're going to do is a shorter distance, then there's probably a lot less necessity to do kind of a really, really long kind of thing that is, double however long your race is going to last or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And so the rest of it though, right? It's just and I hope by this point that maybe you guys are beginning to catch on a little bit. I mean, the rest of the question realistically is it's just asking you like how many times a week should I train? How long should I train? Like it's just sort of it's a different way of asking the 3 to 5 days per week for maybe up to 40 minutes, right? And that the intensity needs to be, somewhere north of 50% of VO2 max in order to get max to go up. It's a very practical application way of looking at those things.
Okay, cool. And so if just to be clear, like say it wasn't asking for a 5K, but it was asking for something like longer, then would you change like the duration?
Yeah, I would. At least one day a week. If the duration of your race is going to be really long, you should try to go. You may not want to start off like I'm going to run a marathon and I'm just starting my training. You don't want to try to start off by doing 3 hours or something, but you want to work up into that. So yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Um, oop, sorry, were you gonna go? You can go first. Also, I can't hear you.
Tyler, you're out. It looked like your mute was off.
Yeah,
Okay.
your mute was off. Oh, you're good? You don't want to go? No? Okay. Um, I was gonna ask a similar thing with I guess I was going to discuss a similar thing, but I guess you covered it with number nine, discussing the relative importance of VO2 max intensity of it. Sorry, number nine, discuss the relative importance of intensity with VO2 max, duration
Mhm.
and exercise in minutes, frequency days per week to train your
Yeah,
VO2 max. So would like the optimal, is that with like the optimal period always be like between 3 to 5 days, 40 minutes? Is that what you would suggest or?
that's what I mean. That it's not just sort of me. That is what is. That's the if depending upon what group you want to get your certifications from, that's kind of what the optimal suggestion is 3 to 5 days per week, 30 to 45 minutes, somewhere between 50 and 80% of VO2 max or 50 to 80% of heart rate reserve. Um, and then as that gets easy, then you can add a day or go a little bit longer or something like that. But the um, which of those do you guys think is, if you had to do one thing, if your goal is to improve your VO2 max, what one thing do you need to make sure that you're using as part of your overload scheme? What's the most important thing?
It's
I would
intense.
assume, oh, yeah, I was gonna say I assume intensity.
Yeah, it's definitely intensity. I know we spent basically zero slides and zero time talking about it, right? But I'm sure most of you guys have heard of high intensity interval training. And so, it's go as hard as you can for 30 seconds or 25 seconds or something. I think I mentioned in class there's some data from a group in Canada where they went to the freshman dorms and they did repeated sprints up the stairs in the freshman dorms. So I forgot which one we tore down, but like go to Walker and like we're gonna sprint up the stairs for 20 seconds and then walk for a minute and then sprint up the stairs again for 20 seconds and do three of those. So it's like one whole minute of high intensity exercise 3 times a week, and you can get significant increases in VO2 max. So making metabolism and the cardiovascular system work hard, even if it's for very short periods of time, can be really, really beneficial. In some ways, more so than kind of longer, relatively low intensity types of things. Okay, Dory wanted to come and say hi. Dory, do you want to say hi to everybody? Yeah, you want to say hi? Yeah, okay. So we're a weekend. She's settling in. She only peed on the carpet twice today. That's a win. Yeah. Jasmine, I'm not even 100% sure that I actually answered the question that you asked, but was that
No,
was
you
that
did. You answered my question. I understood what you were saying. What's
uh-oh.
wrong?
Yep. Now we got a kiddo having a bad dream upstairs. It's okay, Doris.
Do you need a minute to go take care of that or
No, my wife is on it.
okay.
We're good. Well, I mean, I don't know that we're good, but we're at least we're attempting some soothing. So let me see what's in the chat here.
Is my mic working now?
Yep, we got you, Tyler.
Okay. I had a question about number five, which was explaining how body composition affects performance in like sports.
Oh, remember, Tyler, we didn't do body composition.
Okay, never mind.
No body composition stuff on here.
Cool.
So just aerobic training and exercise in the heat. That's all there's going to be.
Okay.
I mean, we can talk about that if you want to, if you just really, really want to know how body composition affects those sorts of things. We
I
can
mean
do that.
wouldn't that kind of like link with like um almost like heart like changes in like lactate production and stuff like that too, but maybe. I don't know. It's okay.
A little bit. I mean, the big thing is right that there's when you're doing weight bearing exercise for a lot of people, the thing is to have as little excess weight as possible. So you want to have as little body fat as possible. But then, depending upon some other goals and some things, sometimes it's just beneficial to be big, right? You just
Yeah.
need to be big and strong, and sometimes to be big and strong, you just gotta have a lot of muscle, and therefore your composition matters less in a lot of ways. Like if you think about power lifters or like guys or women on that like throw the shot put or the discus or something like that in track, they're just big people, right? And they may or may not be relatively lean or not, but it's just an advantage to be able to generate a huge amount of force in
Mhm.
that way. Whereas if you're like a distance runner, you have to move whatever you weigh over and over and over again for a long distance. And so it's likely going to be beneficial to have as sort of be as small in some ways as possible when we do things like that and as lean
Gotcha.
as possible. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But that's not going to be on the test.
Could you explain cardiovascular drift? Like, I know it's just like what happens when we can't maintain like your work flow, your work, whatever, but I don't really know what it means.
Okay. Great question, Sarah. So, cardiovascular drift is a fancy name for it's hot outside. I start exercising, I sweat, and so my plasma volume begins to fall. And so, as my plasma volume falls, my blood volume falls, therefore, preload falls, so stroke volume goes down. And if I'm going to run at the same speed, right, if my stroke volume has fallen in order to maintain cardiac output, my heart rate has to go up. And so, in a cool environment, you're running 7 miles an hour and your heart rate is 140 beats per minute. But when it's hot, after 15 or 20 minutes of doing that, it may have started out at 140, but now it's drifted upwards. Your heart rate has drifted upwards to say 160 beats per minute. And so cardiovascular drift that's what the phenomenon it technically describes the drifting upwards of heart rate because of the falling of stroke volume because of sweat loss. But that's why performance goes down is your art. But when you are running and your heart rate's 20 beats per minute faster, it feels more intense. You're going to have greater central fatigue, and you've also removed that's 20 extra beats that you used to have to be able to raise your heart rate more so to increase work rate. And now you don't have that because you've already raised it to go at that same sort of speed that you were doing beforehand.
Okay, perfect. That makes sense.
Okay. We can alleviate most cardiovascular drift by replacing fluids during exercise in the heat. This is where water and Gatorade and things become really important. It's way more important than all the water you guys drink during the day out of your giant cups. I secretly think the cups are just weapons. That's what y'all are just carrying them around so you can bosh somebody in the head with one if somebody randomly tries to grab you, or something like all of that. Like it's great to be hydrated, but the hydration really matters when it's hot outside. It matters much less so like this morning when it was 30 and those things. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I had a question about number two,
Okay.
which was explaining how an increase in mitochondria like changes certain things, specifically about the less central and peripheral fatigue.
Uh-huh.
For peripheral fatigue, that would be like since there's less lactate accumulation and like better oxygen delivery, and then like increase ATP. But for like central fatigue, would it just because like your mind is like more adapted to being at that intensity?
So That's a good thought, Tyler.
Okay.
But what are you guys think back, what are some of the things that cause central fatigue, especially during endurance exercise? What kind of things cause central fatigue?
Lack of muscle glycogen.
Lack of muscle glycogen. Very good, Jasmine. So, how would having more mitochondria lead to less use of muscle glycogen?
Because it would be using different pathways that wouldn't be making, or that wouldn't be like utilizing muscle glycogen. Right?
Can you be specific about what those pathways are, Tyler?
It'd be Krebs cycle, right?
Okay. I don't use glycogen in the Krebs cycle.
My brain isn't working.
No, that's okay. It's a
Your
trick
question is too
question,
hard.
right?
I honestly forget right now.
That's okay. I can put, right, like I can break glycogen down and put it into the Krebs cycle. But what else can I put into the Krebs cycle? And if I put that in, then I don't have to use the glycogen
Pyruvate and fat,
and
maybe.
fat,
Yeah.
right? So I have more mitochondria. I can metabolize more fat. I'll use less glycogen.
Okay.
It's one way that I can get central fatigue. What would be another?
Maybe, am I allowed to say again?
Of course, Jasmine, please do.
Maybe a buildup of lactic acid uh causing your brain to think that it is like in pain and not wanting to go further.
Perfect. As you become acidic from lactic acid accumulation, it hurts. It's unpleasant. So you may choose to stop. There's one more big one.
This could be wrong, but does it have to do with like the action potentials being fired and like how efficiently your nervous
Mm.
system fires?
No, that's a good thought, Karen. That would be more of a peripheral fatigue kind of thing. That would be a little more on the peripheral side. So, depletion of what else outside of glycogen can lead to central fatigue?
Could it be hormones?
We use the hormones to help us regulate this, Ethan, but it's not a hormone by itself that causes the thing. From last time, right, guys? What are we using? Most of our hormones that are released during exercise help us regulate what? Dory, come here.
I mean, is it metabolism? Or
Hey, you're close, Tyler. That whole hormone grid. What thing does insulin really have an effect on? What thing does glucagon have an effect on?
like blood glucose levels?
Blood glucose. We're trying to regulate blood glucose. If blood glucose, oops, hold on. I got a dog that's trying to eat a pine cone. Okay. All right, I'm back. Not really sure how she got a pine cone off the Christmas tree, but there you go. Right, we're trying to regulate blood glucose. If we regulate and blood glucose falls too far, you will stop exercising. And so, how would having more mitochondria keep blood glucose from falling or from falling as much?
I feel like the answer for like for all of these is going to be it just you use fat instead of using glucose. Is that just the answer for all of it then?
Not exact. I mean, mostly yes, Ethan. Hold on. Dory, what are you doing? Can you come up here and sit down again? You were doing so good. Yeah, come up here and say hi to everybody. Yes, fat. That's the primary answer. It's fat. Having more mitochondria lets you metabolize more fat. So when you metabolize fat, you don't make lactic acid. You metabolize fat, you don't use muscle glycogen. You metabolize fat, you don't use blood glucose, right? All of those things contribute to central fatigue. So when you use fat, voila, you can kind of have a triple whammy effect on all of those different things. All right. What else we got, group?
I have another one real quickly.
Please, Jasmine, go ahead.
Number 4. Uh, I was curious about the different like I know it's his only list too, but I'm wondering about all the different types of like adaptations you can make to increase your heat acclimatization so you can improve your performance, exercise performance in the heat.
Huh? Okay. Somebody want to help Jasmine out? Somebody name an adaptation. Give me one.
That sweating occurs earlier.
Sweating occurs sooner at a lower core body temperature, right? It's one of the
And
ones that you guys were having trouble with in class that day when we were doing the competition. Everybody's numbers were all over the place. But so you sweat sooner at a
and
lower
then
core temp. What
plasma
else do we do?
volume increases.
Plasma volume goes up, right? So I'm sweating sooner. I have more plasma volume that I can actually sweat out. So that helps me stay cool, but it also then gives me a greater amount to lose before I begin to get some cardiovascular drift. So as Sarah had asked about earlier, okay. Is there any other ones?
Your core temperature and your skin temperature go down.
Yep, that's right. And so by sweating sooner and by doing that, you keep you keep your temp down. Dory, come here. You're being real unsettled, sis. Come on. So those are the kind of primary things that are going to happen, guys. You sweat sooner, you have more you can sweat out, therefore you can keep your temp down. So you can maintain performance, and by keeping your temp down, you can keep from reaching that critical sort of slightly north of 40 degrees Celsius core body temp, which would lead to central fatigue.
One thing is the reason that plasma volume goes up during all this because you have more like arteriogenesis. That's why plasma volume goes up, or
No, that's a really good thought, Karen, but mostly it's because you hold on to more water, or you hold on to water and you hold on to sodium. It's mostly a lot of it is a kidney driven thing. And so as you begin to sweat, right, you kind of concentrate the plasma, the osmotic pressure in the plasma goes up. That's sensed by the kidneys. And so you're going to retain water, make less urine in an effort to try to drive the osmotic concentration, those two things back down into that normal range. You will drink a little bit more, but as I think we had mentioned one day, we're real weird. We don't, by the time we're super thirsty, we're basically dehydrated and in danger most of the time, unless you've just like eaten a bag of potato chips or something. We're not like dogs and cats and those kinds of things that will basically drink to match their fluid loss and those kinds of things very, very closely. We dramatically underestimate kind of fluid loss and how much we need.
and
So
so adding on to that, is that why the anti-diuretic hormones go up?
yeah, antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone go up.
Okay, and that's to retain water.
And I would have to go back and look. I feel like that antidiuretic hormone, you hang on to water, and aldosterone, you hang on to sodium, both of which have the same kind of basic effect, right? When you hold on to the sodium, the water stays because the sodium stays. When you hold on to the water, sodium actually tends to stay as well, kind of for the same reasons. And all of that is why, if your kidneys get messed up, you're in big trouble.
For number three, explaining the alterations that occur in the cardiovascular system to dissipate heat during prolonged exercise.
Huh?
Um, would I mean, I have like an answer, but I don't know like how like specific you're wanting to be because it also goes into like explaining how they like lead to a decrease in like exercise performance and stuff. So like for example, like smooth muscle and art like the or like the arterioles, like the
Yeah.
vessels dilating and like resulting in increased blood flow to the skin would I mean would I just relate to like how like if that wasn't like adapted, how that would like decrease
Yeah.
exercise efficiency?
Yeah. So I mean, it's really pretty simple, right? We send blood to the skin that
Yep.
helps us dissipate heat. We sweat. And you
Mhm.
can argue whether sweating is technically a cardiovascular system anomaly, but or a cardiovascular system kind of adaptation during a bout of exercise. But blood goes to the skin. Um, because of all of that, we tend to increase cardiac output. We have to try to increase total cardiac output a little bit because the muscle doesn't get as much. And so those things help us get rid of the heat. But then as we sweat, then plasma volume falls. And as plasma volume falls, then we're back down to now preload falls, stroke volume goes down, heart rate goes up, and now we're actually suffering. And that's why it feels more difficult. I mean, it is physiologically more intense and more difficult to exercise when it's hot than it is when it's sort of relatively neutral or even somewhat cool.
Mhm. Okay. I just didn't know if you like wanted me to like explain other points or just like stay on one and like describe it in full detail, but
I mean, um, what just sort of staying on one and getting the detail on one is great. Um, and that's usually a good way to go.
Dr. Black, I had a question about number 7.
Okay,
Um,
go for it, Kelly.
it's the one that says like your friend's training to run a race
Sure.
and they're doing like an extreme amount of training. Wouldn't you tell them just to like practice running the 5 kilometer race until they get faster at it instead of doing all that 7 days a week, 90 minutes?
So yes, and there's a lot of the actual people that would coach you and train you would have a whole lot more nuance, but the really simple answer is yes. You're probably better off taking a couple of days off, cutting down the amount of time that you're doing and making sure that you're focusing more so on right running as fast as you can at or close to whatever your race distance is going to be. That's because it's shorter, like all of that. That's probably a better way to go about those things. And in some ways, if you're not going to do a marathon, then the total mileage, like you probably don't need 7 days a week. 5 should be plenty.
Okay, thank you.
Save yourself the impact on your knees and your ankles and everything. Your body will thank you when you're my age. The rest of y'all who are just kind of lurking, any other questions? You guys know everything. I mean, I get it's Monday and some of y'all probably have a different test tomorrow, and you're just like, I'm not ready to even ask questions yet, Dr. Black, which I also appreciate. That would totally be me.
I mean, is it still the same? Is it still going to be like the same length and everything? Or is it going to be a little bit shorter since it's just two like topics?
I mean, I envision that it will be a little bit shorter,
Gotcha.
right? I mean, y'all aren't going to complain about that, right?
No.
I mean, I
I don't
can make
I
it
was just
longer if you guys want more points to try to, you feel like you need more so that if you miss a few, it kind of evens out. But I mean, shorter is shorter when in
yeah.
some ways it's less that I have to grade. Um, so I mean, my general thought was that I'm just going to ask sort of I have the questions mostly that I want that I've used before on these topics. And I was just going to ask you what those were. I was not going to try to turn around and write a bunch of new ones or anything else, um, to kind of get there.
Yeah, I just didn't know if because it was just the two topics, it'd be like super in depth compared to like the other sections or okay.
No, I mean, that's funny in some ways. I for better or worse feel like things are always kind of super in depth, Tyler. I know that I don't always ask a question about every little minute detail, but I do have what I feel like is a level of expectation that y'all will know a lot of those things. So, um, regular depth, I mean, probably, I don't know. Um, I'll need to look. I mean, there's probably 25 to 35 multiple choice questions and, three or four, maybe four kind of short answery things would be my guess, is where we're going to end up. So it's going to be a little shorter. And Sakshi's already gone back to India, so I don't have anybody to help me grade. So, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to power through all 82 of y'all. Thought about putting it on Canvas, but I'm like, I don't want to take the time to write all the questions into Canvas. I'm terrified that it doesn't work somehow. So anyway, we'll that's a me problem. It's not a you guys problem. So we'll make the rest of it work.
Do you want us to know a lot about PCG1 alpha? Because I know
No,
like okay.
no, I mean that basically is the sort of signaling hub, Karen, that drives the synthesis of new mitochondria, right? That's the analog to mTOR or something like that drives muscle mass. But beyond like that's what it does. You don't need to know any more than that. You don't have to know how calcium like it binds to this or this thing activates it and this thing inhibits it. Well, we don't need to go into that much depth.
Okay. And then on number one on the test questions,
Right?
um, whenever it talks about like explain the adaptations that lead to an increase in stroke volume, it's mainly like the increase in plasma, right? Other than that, there's not anything else.
So left ventricle gets bigger, right? You get eccentric hypertrophy in the left ventricle and you get an increase in plasma volume. And those are the two big things that drive an increase. Because most of you aren't going to get a lot better at like venous return or anything like that. Excuse me.
Okay, so back to number three. I'm sorry. I had the
Okay.
same answer that Tyler had about the blood going to the skin, but is there a specific cardiovascular adaptation that I'm just missing? I was just kind of wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure, Finley. So, I mean, where the blood goes is in fact a cardiovascular adaptation. Like that, let's not, let's not confuse that is a real thing. Then there are, you know, that's in some ways that's what I would call an adaptation. But then the other things very often that change are going to be kind of consequences of the blood going to the skin. More blood goes to the skin, so there's more sweating. As there's more sweating, there's more plasma loss. As there's plasma volume loss, then we have to increase heart rate to compensate. And so to maintain cardiac output. And then at some point, cardiac output can't keep up. And so those are those other kinds of things. What happens with heart rate and stroke volume and how the sort of sweating and plasma volume loss affect reload, especially, then those are. I mean, you could argue that that's an adaptation. It's a thing that is happening to help us dissipate the heat while also maintaining exercise output. But those are really kind of, to me, they're kind of consequences rather than adaptations. And so it really is feeling that things go to the skin. I now have a cat next to me. I know this house is a freaking zoo.
What's your cat's name?
It's very she's very cleverly named Pumpkin. Um, but she is very rare. Most orange tabby cats are boys. They're not girls. Our vet was astounded and said she'd never seen one before. Um, and so that makes Pumpkin very unique. But otherwise, she's basically Garfield incarnated. Um, she eats, she lays around, she bumps into you and flops over, she eats some more. So she's delightful. Aren't you, Pumpkin? You're delightful. So, except for when she dehydrated herself when we were gone. Yeah, we don't really know how that happened. So she had heat illness, or well, sort of an equivalent of heat illness, where she was super dehydrated. So, yeah, I know. Y'all are the bane of our existence, aren't you? Okay. Y'all just get a wonderful glimpse into what it's like to be an adult, right? I got a kid, I'm sick all the time. So Lord knows, the doctor asked me, where do you think you were around somebody that was sick? And I'm like, I have a almost 5-year-old. Like she's literally sick all the time. Like Lord only knows what kind of funk she brings home. So, um, then we got animals and animals getting pine cones off the Christmas tree. Like life is crazy. I left my. Maybe I'll bring it on Wednesday. We played depart with the grad students and the faculty and staff. We had our holiday party today, and we played Dirty Santa and had an ugly Christmas sweater competition. And I have the truly, truly, truly terrible yet spectacular Christmas tree hat. We found that Ellis really wanted. Dory, stop barking at Pumpkin. Um, Maybe I'll wear it on. I'll try to wear it on Wednesday. So it's like green, like tinsel everywhere, and it has a star, and it's kind of droopy over, like a little sad Grinch sort of thing. So it'll be great. Dory, it's okay. Oh, y'all got other questions, guys? Remember, if you're doing makeup assignments, that they're due on Wednesday. Half credit. Several of you guys have already sent them to me. I'm gonna try to get them. Assuming I can make it to the office tomorrow. I'm gonna try to get them entered into the grade book so you guys can see kind of where we are. We are gonna drop one quiz. I don't know how the hell I got to figure out how to do that in a reasonable manner in Canvas so that I can figure out what the grades are going to look like um, with all of that. Okay. Um, but that's kind of where we are. Y'all have anything else?
Thanks for teaching us this year.
Yeah, no, this has been very enjoyable, if sometimes a little crazier and more scattered than I even normally am. I appreciate you guys, being patient and with us being gone some and the computer not working some mornings and the classroom being locked the one morning, and all of that, and me getting used to having to lecture to 80 people, with everything and making all of that work. So I have enjoyed it, and we'll do more sappy sorts of things on Wednesday. But I've I've had a very enjoyable semester. You guys have been really great, and very patient, and the vast majority of you guys have put in a significant amount of effort, and I noticed that, and I appreciate that. So, um, anyway, so we will see. Those of you that are going to be anybody who's graduating, if you go to graduation on Friday, you can try to say hello. I get to sit up on the stage for the first time with everybody, which is not at all where I want to be. If you go, so if not, if y'all graduate in the spring, if you go to graduation, hope you can see me there. But if not, y'all will be around and we can come by, say hello. So, okay. Any last questions? And again, even if I'm not, my plan is to go to the office tomorrow. The doctor swore to me that once I got a day's worth of amoxicillin in me, that I should not be contagious and I should feel better. Yay, modern medicine, or that's really not even modern medicine. It's like 1920s medicine, antibiotics. I should be in the office. If I'm not, you guys can get me via email or a text message or a phone call tomorrow. I should be around. If you have additional questions and those things, or you're trying to get an assignment done and you're to make up, you're not 100% sure what it is. Can't figure out my shorthand for those things. Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. Anything else, guys? Any other questions? I will, it occurred to me when I started recording this that I have not downloaded and loaded the lectures onto the YouTube channel. So I'm gonna try to get those first thing in the morning, get those downloaded and get those up. I apologize for that, but we'll try to have those if you guys want to go back and see something, okay? Cool. Karen, are you in the library? Like where? I'm just seeing all this like dark wood behind you, and there's like a thing with like swords going through it, like a
Yeah,
like
I'm
a
in my dad's office, so
okay.
at home.
Lovely. Okay. Yes, lots of books and those things. That's nice. I like it.
Thank you.
Dude, we have a green. Our dining room is not quite that shade of green, but it's kind of a nice green. So, okay. All right, guys. Well, if you need something, holler at me tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the regular classroom at 10, and I'll try to be there. We've got 2 hours for the final, and the test is going to be a little bit shorter, but I'll try to be there a little bit early beforehand on Wednesday as well. But I think there'll be less of a need for us to kind of get started extra early. But otherwise, if you need me, holler at me tomorrow, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Okay.
Thank you for everything. Hope you feel better by Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. I do too. So, do not want to wish this on anybody else with a sore throat and drainage. So, all right. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey, be careful. That